This is the 3 a.m. podcast with Nick Rios. And tonight I'm speaking with Daniel Maitland. Daniel is a cinematographer, director, and writer. Some of his most recent credits include Yesterday Today and A Million Happy Nows. His viral video, Naked Hotel Guy, garnered national attention upon release. And he's a nice guy to boot. Daniel, sir, how are you?
I'm great. Just hanging out here in Los Angeles, and it was another kind of hot, sunny day. Always sunny here. I guess that's appealing. I kind of miss the rain sometimes, but hey, what can you do? You gotta live where the work is, right?
Do you think there's any other city in the U.S. that even comes close?
Currently, Los Angeles is doing pretty well with that. 9 years ago, you may not think that some mega blockbusters would be coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, but now they are. The same could be said perhaps for Louisiana, Shreveport, New Orleans. For a while, Louisiana still is really hot, but for a while there, that's where a great deal of film and media production was conducted. Albuquerque had a little bit of its heyday during the Breaking Bad era. I mean, I think they're still shooting Better Call Saul out there and various other productions. But I think Albuquerque's starting to cool off a little bit.
Back in 2016, you had quite the adventure. You traveled cross-country with a group of bikers filming a documentary entitled Brotherhood of Thunder. Let's get into that. Tell me about that experience and about that project.
It was originally going to be developed into a feature-length documentary, but the way the media demands nowadays and the content demands, I believe they wound up chopping that particular work into an episodic format. And it was a documentary where we traveled with a biker gang across the United States all the way to Washington, D.C. For Memorial Day. And we traveled with thousands of motorcycles. And
this is a community.
It started off a lot smaller. It started off with about 700, which is a community, right? But as we rolled across the country, from town to town, so, state to state,
wow,
city to city, people would jump on board, and it was really kind of cool because when I first jumped on the scene for the production, the questions are, okay, who are our characters? Who are we following? Who do I need to shoot? Who do I need to film? And the answer was, we don't know yet. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, so what happened was, I think it was the whole production for that was about 15 days. It was 15 days on the road, and I think it was by about the third day these characters started coming out of the woodwork, which was really kind of cool. We found ourselves maybe taking a break for lunch or something, and one of the bikers would approach us and befriend us, and we started learning about their story. And all these bikers, for the portion of the trip that we were on, were all Vietnam vets. So
where did you guys join them?
Let's see, that was in Ontario, California. And then all the way up through, all the way to Washington, D.C. And when we got there, it was game on. Even more bikers had joined the pack, until we're pretty much at about 500,000
Amazing.
bikers.
You guys hit D.C. on Memorial Day?
We hit D.C. The day prior to Memorial Day.
You made it.
We made it, and I gotta say, that production was a ton of fun. It was so much fun. Because as I said, we normally if you're hired on as like a director of photography and you come onto a camera crew for say a narrative production, things are very structured. Your job is oftentimes when you're working in the camera department, your camera crew, you don't have a lot of creative input with the story, because it's not your job at that point.
Right.
Your job is to, this is what they need. These are the shots they want. We need to work with grip and electric to make that happen. But with documentaries, which I really enjoy, I love documentaries. And then this one in particular, as we shot, the camera crew kind of evolved into, also helping to create the story, more so than if it was just like, following a field producer around and, shouldering up a camera, shoot this guy, let's talk to him really quick, or shoot them, or we have interviews here in a half hour. Here we are radio back to our producer being like, we found this guy. Hey, A cam team, what do you get? Yeah. And that was really neat. It was really cool.
Talk to me a little bit more about the distinctions between documentary making and your typical narrative.
Every production is different, and every production, has its needs, and there are certain methods that are more appropriate for capturing story than others. Documentary filmmaking, I think, is probably the most progressive, and it's usually the one that I feel it's the side of filmmaking that is most abreast with the times. We used a lot of new technology to capture this stuff. I mean, this was the first production where we really utilized handheld gimbals. There is this device called the brushless 3-axis gimbal.
Beautiful, yeah.
And it replaces dynamic balancing with basically just horsepower of electric motors. And it has allowed a more cost-effective, supposed to be easier means than a Steadicam. There's always these little
give and take
tips and tricks and things to get that, and that's where experience comes into play. But now they've taken. It used to be that these brushless gimbals were pretty large, and if you are moving across the country at the rate of a motorcycle gang and a militaristic motorcycle gang, these Vietnam vets who are on a schedule and they move very quickly and they get things done very, very fast. You don't have too much time to mess with film knickknacks, these complicated systems of capturing images. So luckily, these brushless gimbals have now shrunk down to a handheld size. And when you are running and gunning, and your crew is running and gunning, in the type of production that was, those little cameras on these little brushless gimbals were just so handy.
When do you think it's worthwhile for a small production to invest their time into storyboarding before they start shooting?
There is, let's say, at the lower end, I won't say it's a mistake, but a common thing in narrative filmmaking at the lower end, in the lower budgeted projects, is to not necessarily plan things out to the degree of storyboarding. And that can be for numerous reasons. Either they don't have time, they don't have the resources to hire a storyboard artist, and it's not always a hindrance. It's not always a hindrance to the filmmakers to do that. I mean, what you might find is you discover some things as you kind of make it up as you go along. So in the beginning, you do a lot of work that way. But if there's a lot of money on the line, it's a very, very important production. Say it's a commercial, for I don't know, a large brand. Like I did a Logitech ad once, and it was fun to work with Logitech. But it was really important. Big brands, big commercial, big studio space, cameras, this and that. We can't afford to just cross our fingers and hope like something comes out of the woodwork organically, So in that case, everything had to be storyboarded. It's also really important to, if you're working for a client, if you're in the client world,
Hmm.
um, that, you need media assets to convey the filmmaking process to them, because they might not be totally aware of how things are going to get created. And of course, they're putting in a lot of money, and they want to make sure their money's safe, and they want to make sure that they're getting, some great content out of the endeavor of film production. Uh, so how you do that? One of the ways you do that is you craft storyboards and you plan. You craft shot maps. I'm a big fan of shot mapping because a shot map is a laid out blueprint, an overhead blueprint of how the camera team is going to conduct themselves. We're going to move the dolly from this point to this point.
Hmm.
We're going to move, we're going to rack focus off this window. It's just an overhead blueprint of the scenes. And then, so or how it should go in pre-pro is, you kick off with the script, and then, there's artistic concepts that are developed in images and drawings that convey mood and lighting and things like that. And then you move into storyboarding, which the storyboard is, a shot for shot framing of your subjects and characters. Maybe a little bit of art direction is conveyed there, but not too much. And then after that, once shots are determined and how, you create the shot order, the shot list, then the shot order, and the shot order is, a non-linear form, should be a non-linear form of shooting a scene that is more conducive to the crew and the hardware. Obviously, you're not going to shoot. You want to shoot if something takes place, if a scene takes place in a certain area of a room. Um, you're going to knock everything out within that side of the room first, and then you're going to, do the reverse shot. You're going to, shoot everything on the other. I guess a lot of people that are just getting into production, just getting into filmmaking and creating narrative content, often don't realize that it's not a linear process. It's not a linear process at all. Um,
Where does one get exposed to that? Like, where did you feel like you made that um, realization? Was it in school or was it out on your
yeah,
own?
that was a school. You sit down with somebody that's, more experienced. It doesn't have to be a school thing. As you cruise up through levels of production, you could also learn it there. You start to work with um, really great assistant directors, and the assistant director works hand in hand with the producers and the director, and of course the director of photography, to hash out a schedule of the day and how that's going to go down. So working with assistant directors to that degree is going to help you. Or like me, I first discovered that in school. I had a teacher, and it was kind of like an aha moment, like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. This is much this is a smarter way of shooting.
Based on your experience, what's the best use of funds for a filmmaker who only has a very limited and finite amount of money to spend?
Well, at the level of at a lower level of film production where you don't have a lot of money, where the base level indie production, uh, first and foremost, if you have any money, it doesn't need to go necessarily towards equipment. You can scrounge up something to shoot, to create something on the hardware technical side. Okay.
Hmm.
um, where any money should be allocated immediately at the base indie level is making sure people are happy, making sure people are safe, making sure people are happy, making sure people are fed, actors and crew. Um,
Gotcha. I remember hearing that advice. He was
mhm.
saying he just makes sure his actors are fed and he pays for their gas. He,
Right. It shouldn't be a financial burden to to really anyone that's working on it. There's no reason the people that you've hired or the people that have volunteered, they shouldn't be spending money on this. They might expel energy, creatively and physically and that sort of thing, and that's enough. That's enough. But if you have any sort of money, first and foremost, your job is to make sure that this isn't a financial burden on them, because they're already putting in their time. After that, it comes payment. If you have any more money, if you have money to allocate for payment, start paying your actors and your crew member. And
I mean, it seems better than nothing. So if you were offering even $40 a day type situation,
yeah, it is better than nothing. It is better than nothing, and it's at least you're trying. At that point, you're trying to show respect to those that are even taking the time. That's way below, what a lot of people. But in the beginning, of any production, and you got to do what you got to do, and hopefully you have some really great assets in the form of skilled friends and labor who are your friends, and
a good support group.
Right, and if you have the ability to give them any sort of monetary worth after you have made sure that they have gas money, after you've made sure that they're going to have a decent breakfast, a decent lunch, and a decent dinner, always have water and access to crafty and things like that, and of course also make sure that they're safe. That wouldn't be good, especially if something was to happen. So make sure that people are fed, make sure they're safe, and make sure it's not going to cost them any money. That's where, first and foremost, your priorities and budgeting should be.
How do most indie filmmakers intend to make their investment back?
Well, there's the multi-million-dollar question. Is like, what do you do in order for it to make money? You hope it gets picked up on iTunes.
Okay.
You hope it gets picked up on Netflix. That's these are our new outlets. These are the things that filmmakers are starting to rely on to basically make their next film. Are these online applications and exhibition platforms?
So competing with PewDiePie.
Indeed, right.
That is rough. What about the odds of being able to parlay a good idea and a well-executed piece of content into a Bravo show or something along those lines, an FX show? If that's kind of your goal, you think, okay, I can do something that I think is in line. Let me do this pilot on my own. Is that a lottery winner, the people that succeed in that, or is that a viable possibility?
Well, it is something that is becoming more and more frequent, but with it becoming more and more frequent, people are trying to do it more often, and more content is being pushed to the eyeballs necessary to make that sort of happen. So yes, it is, it is a little bit of a lottery to that extent, but also know that, it matters how good your content is, how good is your film, how original is your film, then who is in your film, and then it's how big was your budget for this? Was it a big budget? Well, if it was a big budget, ooh la la, you got interesting actors, you got a big budget, your source material is good. Here you are just checking boxes essentially to boost the odds of you winning that lottery.
Do you think it's worthwhile entering your movie into all the film festivals?
Bad news. Festivals are a ton of fun. They're a blast. These days, they are not the best way to get your film out there. It's not the best way to get to the next step of distribution. It used to be. I mean, the Sundance Film Festival in 1999 was like, oh my gosh, like people were blowing, their minds were blowing. Um,
Hmm.
you had things like, you had like Quentin Tarantino, creating his indie films, and then they would get shown, and then pretty soon the what have you, the Weinsteins or somebody that is, at Park Cities, Utah, or at that time, I think it was at this actual Sundance, Robert Redford's Sundance um, ski resort. They're purchasing films, and now it's like, I mean, it sounds depressing, but good luck if you think, you really have to already be in bed with some big wig players to get your content viewed at Sundance and in front of, the film purchasing market.
Daniel, what do you say to people with an idea who have the desire to create content but can't get over sort of that beginner's hump? Maybe it's a perceived lack of experience or equipment, but something's holding them back. How do you knuckle down and just go for it?
There's something about the rubber hitting the road that's a little bit scary. My
Mm.
advice to you, Nick, is hopefully there is a buildup and a point to which you're like, now we're gonna pull the trigger on this now. Now is the time.
Mm.
Of course, there always runs the risk that that time never comes, which is, so you just have to be very realistic to yourself, your resources, and you have to be someone who can identify the roadmap to finishing the project, but know that there's no use starting if you don't think you're going to finish it. And that alone's a motivator. That alone's a motivator. Is like once the day hits where it's like first day of production, crew call sheets are out, crew showing up at this time, actors are showing up at this time. We're gonna, we have allotted 10 hours. You wake up that morning and it's like, I now have to finish this. I have to, though I am just starting it, I now have to finish it by all means necessary, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And I've made stuff that's awful. It's just disastrous. But I will say this, that if I don't finish it, even despite me looking at it and being like, this is awful, then, that it's in nothing ventured, nothing gained.
All right, let me pitch a show to you while I got you here. It's a reality show. So, along the lines of Project Runway, Master Chef, The Apprentice, except that instead of designing clothes, we are designing software. And it's the same 3-act structure where we have the challenge presented at the beginning, then we show the process, and then close with a showcase and judging. What do you think it would cost to put a decent show like that together professionally?
So so you hash out the show idea. You get your people. I don't know if, to the extent that we're discussing it now, I don't know what it would cost to facilitate the show. But just to give you a number, what we're discussing here, I think you could make something really decent happen for probably 12 grand. Like really, like of notable, like, wait a second, hold on. I mean, maybe not even, it just, it depends on where you go. It doesn't, I'm not sure what some sort of bell curve to elbow grease and then money.
Okay. What if I was to try to film a prototype on my own?
All right, so now you're thinking about a pilot. You're thinking about a proof of concept to go along with the written material. Let's think here. a good format to look into and a good means of production might be are you familiar with Twitch?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, the video game. Okay, all right. So let water it down a little bit. Water it down a little bit. What if initially, Nick, the show was some programmer with some clout
Mm-hmm.
comes up with a problem. I don't know what the problem is because I don't
I
deal
see what
with
you're
the
saying.
world.
So it's like a code. See, I guess and
Here,
we're
here's
just
how here's how simple this could be, Nick. This
okay.
is how simple this could be.
Go for it.
You put one of these guys in front of the camera, okay?
Yeah.
You put one of these guys in the camera. You have them come up with a problem. You put that on the web.
Hmm.
You say to people, create a video of you coming up with this program solution. Send it here when you're done, okay? We want to see you do it from beginning to end. We want you to do almost like a tutorial walkthrough, okay? And you're going to do it for this program, which hopefully you all know. You all know this guy because you've seen him speak here, you've seen him speak there, or he helped.
Yeah. Or at least you know who he is.
You know who he
you
is.
look him up a little bit. He's got the name. I got
And
you.
then they work through the problem. They create the platform or what have you. They create the product. They show them how they do it. They send the footage in. Maybe you have 3 programmers do it of a different variety. You got to have a chick too because you got to have a lady programmer.
In fact, I don't know. Just to clarify, and we're just spitballing here, and I see this actually is an interesting. This could be an online kind of version of the show what you're describing.
Well, this is the progression, Nick.
The vision that I was trying to is not just programmers. It would be a designer, an assist, somebody that can actually, so that you get these people that have to work together, and it has to look good and work well.
All right. So that's a progression element, or simply watching content derived from webcams and screen grabs of code.
That could get pretty dry.
Would it? Well, I mean, you would know better than me. Yeah, but no. But here's the thing, Nick, is the moment it gets dry, that's when you bring in conflict. That's where editing comes into play.
Yeah.
Is the moment it starts to get dry, is the moment your host, your guy with a bit of clout chimes in and says something on the lines of like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
See, it doesn't matter. There's these moments within a creative process. So if I was in an office working with a group of people, we have disagreements. We have these debates. We have to prove who's right. There's a battle between techs constantly.
Right. And that's an easier battle to portray if everybody's in the same room, I bet. But yeah, no, you're right. Anytime you work with anybody at all, I mean, there's always, creating filmmaking, to go back to my existence is just a series of compromises and sometimes a series of arguments.
I bet.
But see, you're already thinking of ways. You're thinking of ways to counteract code on the screen getting dry. You're already solving problems. So, long story short, Nick, is the show. Your concept sounds like a worthy endeavor. It sounds like a lot of work, but most things that are worthy of doing aren't easy. And it can be done. It honestly can be done and can be done effectively for in numerous ways and with numerous, if we're talking monetarily, it could be as simple as $1,000. It could be as complicated as 20 grand an episode. Mm-hmm. It just depends. I mean, it really depends on it all depends on what it takes to get the base level of entertainment that your niche audience would watch. That is as expensive as it needs to be.
Earlier you mentioned Netflix and iTunes. Talk a bit more to us about how the internet is impacting indie filmmakers.
Well, to the degree of making money off of whatever you create, there's a lot more options online. And this is where my interest in online exhibition and the things I make and the things I create advertising and maybe strictly entertainment. And that's why I have this fascination with online. We don't like to wait around. We're very impatient people, and we're getting more impatient, both on the consumption of media and the exhibition of media, and the internet just just like everything else. The internet accelerates that. We're getting faster, and it helps me and entices me on numerous fronts, from the ability to engage a wider audience, to the ability of lowering the cost of advertising opportunities, having flexibility in who advertises what episode when, and then and this now goes into my theories on niche content creation. Okay, the idea that in the world of film and its relation to the internet, once upon a time we were all after views. We were all after viewership, and things of that nature. But what the internet naturally does is it breaks mankind down into sections and subsections. Look at Reddit. Why is Reddit so popular? Because everything is on Reddit. You have an interest, there's a whole community within Reddit that pertains just to your niche interest. Well, that's affecting film content. That's affecting making movies. That's affecting making television shows and commercials and pretty much everything visual with information or entertainment value. It is better now. It is more lucrative now to secure an audience, to have a consistent audience interested in this topic. So you might not be looking for, I have 6 million views on this music video. You might be like, guess what? The advertiser for this video is this company. I don't have 6 million views, but of the 800,000 views I have, 85% of them fall within that advertiser's interest. Boom, that's money. That's money that gives worth, a monetary worth, a monetary value to people that aren't strictly enthralled with your content for the artistic or entertainment side.
Finding your audience, and it couldn't be any clearer than when you look at YouTube's payout model, where you've got videos with millions of views, and they're getting paid fractions of a penny per view relative to some other guy. He may have millions of views or whatever, the number's arbitrary, but he's getting paid dollars per view because advertisers are bidding on those keywords. Right.
And some people really find that, specifically out here in Los Angeles, I think a lot of people, that it bothers a lot of people. That does.
Let's talk about Naked Hotel Guy. That thing really took off.
Oh man, that one blew up. Big league. It's weird to go to the gym, jump on a treadmill, and you're watching the news, and all of a sudden Wolf Blitzer is got a piece of multi-view content on his screen, and he's talking about fake videos and things like that, and your material's on there. So that's
do you think it was a case of great luck?
Well,
can lightning strike twice type thing?
I know that I set out to make a viral video, and pretty soon I'm reading, I put it on the web organically. I put it on the web. I shoved it out there, and pretty soon I'm reading, I'm counting 37 articles on the Google News section relating directly to my video. And I have people stealing it. I have producers calling me, being like, is it real? Is it fake? You need to let us know because we want to feature it on our show. And I'm like, it happened. I fucking did that. Like, Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know exactly how I did it. Maybe it was the perfect recipe. So I don't know.
All right, Dan, man. Thank you for coming on and talking with me tonight.
Great chat with you. Keep me abreast as to how this little endeavor goes. And it was really fantastic. Picking your brain as well as you hopefully picking mine.
Yeah, I think we'll have a couple moments.
Great. All right, man. Have a good one.
This has been Nick Rios with the 3 a.m. podcast. My guest tonight was Daniel Maitland. Thanks for listening, and have a great morning.